Hey there, Knicks fans. Basketball's in full swing, and FANATICS Sportsbook has new ways for you to get more out of the action as we head into the new year. Every bet earns you up to 10% FANCASH, win or lose. So even if your bet doesn't go your way, you're still building FANCASH you could use across the FANATICS universe on apparel, fan gear, and more. If you haven't made the switch yet, now's the time. FANATICS Sportsbook. Winning, it's different here. Hey there, Knicks fans. How you doing? It's your boy, Jonathan Macri, with you for another episode of the Knicks Film School Podcast. Coming at you. This is not the last podcast that you will, or the last time you'll hear my voice in this calendar year, because we still have a Spurs post game to go. But it is the last time I will have the pleasure of talking on air to this gentleman sitting next to me virtually. And it is someone that I've not had the pleasure of speaking to on a podcast if we don't count post games when you've popped your head up here and there this season. When is the last pod we've done together, Andrew Claudio?
I have popped. My head has popped up a lot on post games recently. I think the last time, the Pablo pod. Yes, the Pablo pod. I'm talking about a proper podcast. I believe the last time we podcasted together after an entire summer of podcasting together, John, was during training camp or during the preseason. We did like biggest questions headed into training camp, or hey, Giannis wanted to come here and then didn't this summer conversation. But that's the last time we've talked into microphones in an official capacity. And it's appropriate that you and I have one more pod of 2025, Mr. Macri.
Well, it's appropriate and also fun because I love potting with you and I don't get to do it as much anymore, which is highly unfortunate. But you're a busy man, so I understand.
That would be two of us this year, JMAC. That we're both learning a little bit more about the rigors of the full-time content creation world. But I love potting with you too, or else I wouldn't do it as much. I'm looking forward to wrapping up an interesting next year with some questions for 2026.
Yeah, so Jeremy and I kind of did the look back, and I like the lists that we came up with, our top fives. It was quite a year. Before we get into our top three questions for 2026, which is always tough to do because like 2026 encapsulates part of like next season. So I don't know how you ask a question about something that's such a unknown quantity, but we'll figure it out. Thinking back to the last year, what do you think was the biggest surprise over the last 12 months?
That they made the conference finals.
Okay.
Honestly, that they made the conference finals. It's one of the biggest surprises in NBA history that they beat the Celtics.
Oh, that's...
John, go to the odd makers. Let's go to our friends at FANATICS Sportsbook. What were the odds for the Knicks to win the series before the Celtics series? What were the odds for the Knicks to win the series after game one? What were the odds for the Knicks to win the series after game two? The Celtics were still heavily favored despite being down 2-0 in the series. And it wasn't until Jason Tatum tore his Achilles, not Knicks won game four. Yeah, it was after Tatum tore his Achilles that the books started to reflect, specifically our friends at FANATICS Sportsbook, started to reflect, the Knicks might win this series. And even then, it took a game 5 blowout for us to be like, are we sure the Knicks are going to win this series? And then finally game 6 happened. So, and that's maybe a theme for 2025 for me, is that I had a lot of questions about the team throughout last year. I thought it might be Tom Thibodeau's last. I thought the next coach might be able to explore a different ceiling. I thought it might go a little better. Like everything else went as somewhat expected, but they also made the conference finals. So mixed in there was the surprise of them dethroning the champs and beating the Celtics. That has to be the biggest surprise for me.
I'm not gonna lie. My answer when I asked you the question, my mind immediately went to Tibbs getting canned. But that wait
a minute, you're telling me your mind immediately went to Tom Thibodeau? That happened?
It's so funny.
That never happens.
I have so like not today's newsletter, yesterday's newsletter was kind of focused on Mike Brown's growing in ways.
You don't say, John. There will be questions asked later in this pod for 2026 that may refer to recent newsletters or comment sections in recent newsletters.
It is amazing the emotions that my discussion of I never realized over the years that whenever I talked about things like the Knicks coach, that it got people so emotional. But
you could have ended your sentence after realized, and that would have been the Knicks Film School motto. Honestly, our mission statement: he never realized. He never realized that things happen on the internet without his knowledge.
The irony is, I referenced this quote like a couple weeks ago. My favorite quote from As Good as It Gets. Which, have you ever seen As Good as It Gets?
I actually haven't. I know Nicholson won an Oscar. I think Hunt won an Oscar too. I've never seen it.
I referenced my favorite quote from the movie, which Jack Nicholson says. Someone asked Jack Nicholson, who's an author, how he writes women so well, and he was very annoyed. And he says, "I think of a man and I take away reason and accountability." That's actually me. How do you write content creators so well? I think of a normal person and I take away reason and accountability. That's John Macri in a nutshell.
There you go.
It's fantastic.
I had no idea where you were going with that quote, by the way. And then he's like, okay, that actually fit. That fit very well, Mr. Macri. Well done.
I always somehow land the plane, sometimes in a tree, but I do often land the plane. Okay, let's get it. No, I didn't even finish my thought.
You didn't finish your thought. Go ahead.
What I was going to say was, not that Tibbs was fired. That could have told me he was going to be fired back on January 1st. I'm like, yeah, okay. That if you would have told me on December 31st that they would have made the conference finals and that he would have been, and after defeating Boston in the way that they did, and that he was going to lose his job, I think I probably would have been more surprised by that statement at that time than they made the conference they made the conference finals. And I, to really complete the thought, even though when he was canned, I was not surprised in the least, which is interesting.
He's the only coach that this could ever apply to. This has been a running theme for me on the pregame pods this year, that nobody was like, I can't believe, not one guest from an outside market has been like, I'm surprised they fired Tibbs. He's the only person that could get further and further and further. And when he's finally fired, it's like, yeah, I understood that. You probably need to explore a different thing or try something new. He's the only person I think that could ever achieve that status. And I don't know if it's a gift or a curse that he could achieve that status, but if you're looking for a surprising thing from 2025 for me, I also thought on December 31st, this might be the last year of Tom Thibodeau. Yeah. And the only thing that didn't fall in line with the timeline of how I thought things might play out is that they also made the conference finals and still decided to fire him.
Not a question for 2026, but a question for, I don't know, 2036. Looking back at this era, what is the most important move that Leon Rose made?
Signing Jalen Brunson.
Second most, sorry.
Second most? Behind signing Jalen Brunson?
Yeah.
Well, right now, it's trading for OG Anunoby, but I also think you could make we'll see what happens with the Mike Brown case if this season ends the way it potentially could.
I wonder if hiring Mike Brown will make the top 5, because I think OG's a clear number 2. And you could, and then there's
they win a title this year. It's 3 or 4, John.
Over trading for Hart?
Yes.
Over trading for Cat?
Yes.
Oh, that's we would have. Well, I hope now among the reasons I hope they would have titled this year, a number high on the list is revisiting that comment.
I think there could be like conversations around what's 2, 3, 4, and 5. Like it's one of the.
You nailed it. OG, there's no.
But that's the thing. I think it's a clear one, and then there's a lot of right answers for the next bunch of answers. That's also more what I go to. That's the podcasting. That's the discussion.
Why do you hate Mikal Bridges? That's a real or Tyler Kolek.
Or Tyler Kolek, drafting Tyler Kolek. Listen, the way Mike Brown's coaching, drafting Mohamed Diawara or finding a way to get Kevin McCullough and Tyler Kolek and Ariel Hookporty and Trey Jemison all in the same offseason.
Listen, if Tibbs were coaching, Diawara would already be in the all-defense conversation. On that note...
of the G League.
On that note, perfect transition. I'm going to go first because this works really well.
So
my number.
You got to say that. What are we doing today?
I said our top 3 questions for 2026.
So that just make sure that groundwork is set. Top 3 questions. To be clear, I have not seen John's questions. He has not seen my questions. We're actually revealing them on screen to each other for the first time. So I get to see your question for the first time.
It's also in the episode title.
Yes, but people that may just click on a thumbnail.
I know, and there are people out there like me who can't read. My number 3 question: whose storybook will be written this season? And I'll expand on that a little bit, even though it might be obvious. Throughout let's call it the Leon Rose. Why did it go away? Did you take it away? Oh no,
you put a timer on it, didn't you?
I put a timer on it. Why did I put it? I thought I undid the timer thing for all of these, but no, I have to click.
It's all staying in.
It has to stay in. It's John Macri, producer. That's it. That's where it's at. Now I have to figure out how to get back. No, that's it. Oh, wait. Oh, wait, I have to press enter. That's right. Did you see what just popped up?
No, I didn't actually.
Okay, great.
At mine. Yeah, you're good.
Great. All right, here we go. Whose storybook will be written this season? So it's in the Leon Rose era, following, many years in which all the stories that were written were bad. We got storybooks for, in no particular order, the aforementioned former head coach, Julius Randle, certainly RJ Barrett, Emmanuel Quickley, Brunson, Josh Hart, DiVincenzo, Hartenstein. Like these guys, we talked about all of them in our 25 for 25 series, and the way we talked about them over the summer was not the way you just talk about your average former players. Like these, we had, for better and in some instances for worse, really, really deep emotional connections to all of these players. And I would say in the last year, the Cat story is still very much being written. But this past year, I would say has been the year of Cat, in terms of, penning narratives. And I want to know, who is it going to be this year? It would seem like it is going to be the aforementioned Mike Brown, but is it possible it's one of these young players? Is it possible that it's someone that is not on the team yet, or like that might be on the team this year? Or this season? Is it possible it's someone that maybe they acquire this summer? And that's what I'm very curious about.
Which player or person can accomplish the most if the Knicks don't win a title? Because obviously, Knicks win a title, that almost, I don't know if it clinches Mike Brown for the Hall of Fame, but he would have 2 finals appearances, 1 title, a bunch of years an assistant, multiple coach of the year. He probably is the Knicks coach for a while now, so maybe he can rack up the wins during a prime as well. Like, there's the Mike Brown case. There's the Leon Rose is solidified forever. Like every move that we've ever questioned, like, was this a good move or a bad move? They won a title, so it all worked out. Mikal Bridges, like, screw those picks forever. Enjoy drafting whoever in 2031 or 2032, whatever the pick is. Like, the Knicks won a title. Cat, I don't have to question, can you win a title with Karl-Anthony Towns? They win it. The interesting thing becomes, if they don't win the title, all of those questions still exist. But is there a Jalen Brunson conversation?
I was going to say, you threw out 4 names there, and I agree with all 4 of the names. They are all in tier 2 for me in that context, below Brunson. If they win a title this year, Brunson he's Joe. I mean, how many good years did Joe Namath have? Like, whatever.
You could argue 0, but you could also argue that he has like one of the most important wins. He's Namath ever. Yeah.
Combined with he's Namath and Messier in one person.
I think he becomes the greatest player in franchise history. He wins a title.
That becomes the like. If they win the title this year, he still has more of the race to run, but he knows if he completes the race, that's the thing that's at the end.
They win the title. I'm assuming he will also be finals MVP. He will do something that Ewing never did. And this is not a Patrick Ewing slander case.
Oh, it's a fact.
This is just a fact. And the other two in the conversation, Willis Reed and Walt Clyde Frazier, will have won titles pre-merger when the league didn't have a three-pointer, when the league didn't have the talent pool that it did, wasn't as established as it was. Not to diminish the 1970 or 72 champions, it's just much harder to win a championship in 2025-26. So he will have done it in the modern NBA, rehabilitated a franchise that was going nowhere, and given legitimacy to said franchise. And I think there's a strong case for it. He will at least enter the conversation, like you said, of the best player for a franchise in its history.
When I asked the question, I wasn't thinking of any of the people that you were talking about. I was more thinking about players whose stories have not yet been written.
So who are you going to?
Well, I don't know. That's the interesting thing. Is I think the likeliest answer is, well,
I also think I asked you my question wrong. I think I asked you who has the most to gain, who can accomplish the most for the Knicks not winning a title. I meant who can accomplish the most from the Knicks winning a title this year. I think for the Knicks, it's Brunson.
Oh yeah, no, that's Brunson.
There's I know CP brought this up before the season. There's a Dolan conversation that suddenly you can win a title if James Dolan is your owner because you did. I
know, absolutely. The name I had in mind when I wrote the question, I'm not going to lie, it's insane, is Tyler Kolek.
Whose storybook will be written this season? As
opposed to somebody who has no book whatsoever right now, with all due respect to the last couple of weeks. This is a preamble. Like, is this thing going to continue? Is he going to go down as like the next one of these guys that if we are doing a 30 for 30 in 5 years, like Tyler Kolek has a prominent place on the list?
I mean, what he becomes over the next 6-10 months is an interesting thing to look forward to. I also what does his emergence do for the rest of the roster? There are guys with extensions.
Trade market.
Right. So do they think Deuce is more expendable now because we have Tyler Kolek on this really good second round contract?
Don't say that. Don't, oh my God.
I'm not even saying that's something I would consider. I'm just saying what does Tyler Kolek's emergence as a true point guard in the backup unit and someone that can play with Jalen Brunson do to the Knicks considerations to the rest? One of my honorable mention questions that I put was, is this the last dance for this version of the Knicks? Mitchell Robinson is an expiring contract. Deuce McBride.
That's a good question.
So there's a version of the Knicks that will look very different if they don't win a title this year, or maybe if they do win a title. They are hundreds of thousands of dollars away from the second apron at the moment. And we know Brock Allard loves flexibility. So maybe even if they win a title, this is somewhat of a last dance for this version. I like Tyler Kolek's, seeing him get the opportunity and thrive with it has been awesome. I don't know how much I will leave this season more considering him more than just, they found their backup point guard. Great. And he can play with Jalen Brunson. Great. I don't know. Is there another level you think it could ascend to?
Given the fact that we left Christmas feeling like this, I wrote his name in the same sentence as Jeremy Lin's. Yes, I think I do. Think that there is another level. Sorry, you triggered something by bringing up the Deuce thing, because I couldn't verbalize it, although I very strongly implied it at the end of last night's monologue by putting him and Yabusele together. What I was thinking the whole time is these are the two players most likely to get traded before the deadline for wildly different reasons, obviously.
Deuce and Yabu, or Kolek
not together, but just if you ask me to rank the Knicks most likely to get traded before the deadline, number one would be Pacome Dadier. So he is so far ahead of the race.
Only DNP last night. On the night they played 12 guys.
Really played 12 guys. But then after Dadier, it would be Yabusele and Deuce in some order. And again, the only reason Deuce is there is because he's so freaking valuable, and is some team going to look at him as being like, this is our ticket to an extra playoff round win. And do the Knicks look at what they have, to your point, to our conversation about Kolek, and being like, it's you know, but I just don't. I've looked so many times. Like I almost had a trade question and I didn't, purely because I can't see the trade that makes them look at this and be like, yeah, this is worth moving him for. I just don't see it.
I don't either. It's similar to the Mitch conversation last year. Like, cause it was a salary slot for most of the season. And I got to a point towards the deadline. It's like, what's the best move the Knicks could make? A positive Mitchell Robinson contribution in the last 20 games of the season. And he was one of their best players in the playoffs. So I'm almost wondering what impact what kind of impact player would you have to get to make me okay with trading Deuce McBride?
That's the thing, is like it would have to be a center that's like is really, really good. But then again, you're getting a guy. Is he going to be better than Mitchell Robinson when healthy? No. So then if he's on the team and Mitchell Robinson is healthy, is he playing major minutes? Well, not unless you're not going to play Cat at the like there's every time you think about it, you just keep running into dead ends, unless it was a player like what Gershon Yabusele was supposed to be, which is like, hey, he could play the 5, he could play the 4.
I also think if you're trading Deuce, I don't want a center. I want another, like a 2 guard, like getting Quentin Grimes back. But even then, I still wonder if I'd rather have Deuce for next year too than Quentin Grimes. Like that's the type of move I'm looking at, because then you go to back to a legitimate 5 outlook and you get the point of attack defender.
So if they got a legit,
someone that you can put next to Brunson.
Can you imagine the fucking scene here if they traded Deuce McBride and Gershon Yabusele for Quentin Grimes?
Gershon reunites with the Sixers. Deuce then goes to be backup to be another 6th man, and then the guy that the former head coach decided he didn't like anymore suddenly becomes the Knicks starting 2 guard.
I gotta tell you, man, I'm not saying you're saying you would do it. I wouldn't do that trade.
I wouldn't either. I don't think it's a bad trade if they were to make it. I would very easily talk myself into it. It's not a crazy trade. Would be fine if the Knicks were like, we'd rather have Deuce.
Yeah, I'm just like looking at guys who make a certain amount of money. Would you
to be clear, by the way, none of my questions are trade related. It's very much about the current roster and the current team. So I'm glad we're getting these questions out of the way. And this will be time stamped, by the way. So we'll make sure people can skip if they don't want to hear any trade talks.
I'm just looking at guys in like this salary range. Both teams would very quickly say no to this. Would you do? I think they would. We'll move on after this, just because I'm looking at salaries and I'm like trying to find something.
This is Deuce plus Yabu. That's what
Deuce plus Yabu. So they make 9 point.
It's like something. 9 and change, right?
Yeah. Deuce and Yabu for I was almost said Buddy Hield, not Buddy Hield. Ben Mathurin.
No.
You would say no. I think Indiana says no just as quick.
They're trying to lose. So yes, they would definitely take Ben Mathurin and all his high usage minutes.
Yeah, I just don't see the fucking trade. Anyway, all right, let's move on to your question. We could be here all day talking trade.
My number 3 question. Will Mike Brown end up in legitimate coach of the year consideration? Jonathan Macri, this question comes from a friend concerned about a friend, because 2 days ago, the Knicks played a basketball game against the Atlanta Hawks. And it was one of the most and there's been a lot of these this year. Do they win this game with the previous coach? And it's been, you could spin it in certain ways. Like the Christmas Day game was interesting. I thought that was headed toward a Knicks loss, and then Josh Hart got hurt, and the same Josh Hart conversation that was had was continued to have when a small guard played next to Jalen Brunson down the stretch, and it was successful. But that's something I think Mike Brown would have played Josh Hart down the stretch. So it would have been the same conversation.
Tibbs would have? Or no?
I'm saying this year, if Josh Hart doesn't get hurt, he would have played it down the stretch, and the Knicks were headed for a double-digit loss. Then the Hawks game happened, and we got a Kevin McCullough Jr. game.
Yeah.
And it was very much, this absolutely doesn't happen with the head coach last year.
Zero chance.
I got this. Let me give me the floor. Give me the ball. I promise I got this. Then I decided to read the Knicks Film School newsletter. A little late on a Monday, but it was fine. We're all kind of busy, so it's okay when they're a little They're coming out later in the day, John. I know you're busy during the Christmas break. I speak on behalf of your subscribers that you apologized to at the beginning of the newsletter. And you decided to dedicate most of the word count to everything that the former head coach established over his first 5 years here, before then bringing up that, oh yeah, he was very risk averse, and it's why Mike Brown deserves credit for being a little more risk averse. More dangerous, and seeing what the ceiling could potentially be with this team. Unafraid to fail is the words, I believe you word specifically. Yes. You also, if I could just, I rarely get triggered by you these days, I promise. The most chicken shit cherry picking of a stat that I've ever seen, that Jalen Brunson through 29 games had played more 39 plus minute games than he did last year under Tibbs.
True.
Meanwhile, if you just add one and say, how many 40-minute games did Brunson play? So to be clear, John put in a newsletter that last year to this point in the season, through 29 games, not even to this point in the season, through 29 games, Jalen Brunson had played last year he had played 4 39 plus minute games. Mm-hmm. And that this season he's already played 5 39 plus minute games. Now let's do 40-minute games. This year he hasn't played a 40-minute game yet. Mm-hmm. To this point last year, not through 29 games, to this point last year, John, he had already played 4, including multiple 42 and 43-minute games. And it's why I just need to put this on the screen for you real quick. So let's go back to last night's box score. I'm going to put this on the screen. Oh, no, this isn't last night's box score. This was game 32 last year, John Macri. No, this wasn't the Washington game. This is the Washington game.
Oh, it is the Washington game? Okay.
So this is through 32 games last season. Yeah. The Knicks played 9 men, although their bench was 19 Precious Achiuwa minutes, 19 Miles McBride minutes, 12 minutes total from Cam Payne and Landry Shamet. And in an overtime game against the 5-24 Washington Wizards, we got 44 minutes from Brunson, 44 minutes from Cat, 42 minutes from OG Anunoby, and then 47 minutes from Mikal Bridges. And just to use Jonathan Macri's stat, 39 plus from Josh Hart as well. Now, let's look at game 32 from this season, shall we? And as we put it on the screen, look at all these players playing, John. Look at how many people are on the roster. This is against the 8-26 New Orleans Pelicans.
Yes,
by the way.
You're proving the whole point that this is the whole reason I wrote the newsletter.
So this is really where my conversation comes down to, where my question comes down to. Will Mike Brown end up in legitimate coach of the year conversations? Because the way he's deciding to coach this team is exactly how a championship team should be coached. He is exploring all of the margins that I hoped that we would explore last season. He is exploring and finding value in ways that are very similar to how Rick Carlisle was going to man 11, 12, and 13 during the conference finals last year. And he knew, because of how he treated the regular season, this is how I need to treat. This is where I can go to find value. And I say this from a place of concern, my friend, Jonathan. I hope that in 2026, if he enters into legitimate coach of the year conversations, it will just be about Mike Brown and not about the first 3 paragraphs of the word count being about the former head coach. And that it also won't coincide with you arguing with people in the comment section afterwards for the next however many hours that you did.
3 things. Mm-hmm. Number 1, every point you just made is all the points that I made in the newsletter, is why I wrote the newsletter, to make the exact point that you just made. Number 2, the tip stuff was not there to praise Tom Thibodeau. It was to merely lay the groundwork of why me, of all people, me, who people have associated with Tibbs for so long and love Tibbs and this, that, and the other thing about Tibbs, me coming out and saying this, that I mean, I guess I'm trying to add credence to my own praise of Mike Brown. Because again, there's a lot of people who wanted Tibbs fired and are loving everything Mike Brown is doing. Now, in fairness, I kind of thought Tibbs should be fired. And I certainly didn't mind that he was, as I said today, that it happened. But like, obviously there was still an emotional connection to some degree with the last head coach. And so now sitting here, I'm sure if I wanted to, I could concoct arguments about why, this maybe isn't the ideal way to go. That would be insane. This is the only way that this team should be coached right now. And then number 3, and this is the big thing that, no disrespect to you and commenters and people on the internet never understood. It was never about Tibbs. It was about respecting the man in the chair, which is why there's going to be a time, Andrew. I'm telling you and everybody else, there's going to be a time when people want Mike Brown fired. Whether it's this year, whether it's next year, it's going to happen because every coach in the history of the NBA, at some point in time, their fan base wanted them canned. Steve Kerr, it happened to Eric Spoelstra, it happened to Greg fucking Popovich. Actually, people in San Antonio were really nice, but I'm sure there were some people in San Antonio who, at some point during the
majority have never wanted to Popovich fired. You're right.
But when you look, think about the Spo stuff. Like last season, the year before that, this guy's been coasting on Pat Riley's coattails. I don't know that any coach has ever been wanted to be fired by his fan base as much as Steve Kerr over the majority of the last 10 years. I could go on and on and on and on. These are some of the 15 greatest coaches in the history of the league. Doc Rivers, first ballot. First ballot. There's really no ballots for coaches. He'll be in the Hall of Fame one day. He's a top 15 coach. There has been no coach that has been derided in the history of the league more than Doc Rivers. Like, I could go on. I'm not going to bore people. I will defend Mike Brown when that time comes because it is about the people in our chair who don't know shit from shit defending the people who are in that chair, who know so much more than we could ever be capable of knowing. Some of Tom Thibodeau's ideals and the qualities that he showed, did they dovetail nicely with some of my own personal ethos that I consider very significantly responsible to getting to the point where I'm the primary host of the most popular Knicks podcast in the world? Yeah, absolutely. And that's why I'm always going to have a special connection to him. But it was never about that. That was more a byproduct than anything else.
I actually don't think you know how much it actually is about the ethos. And because I've heard your thing about, but this whole thing about it's about respecting the man in the chair and that us podcasters know nothing. Listen, I'm watching Draymond Green get dragged right now. Apparently these players also don't know nothing about podcasting these days. But I think it very much is a Tibbs thing. Hold on. I need to respond to what you said. I know that this is your thing about coaching, and to just give the rest of us that work really hard on understanding the game as well, we're allowed to look at what a coach's resume and the output of his team as well, of course, and criticize. Otherwise, there would be no bad coaches, John. There just 100%. Flatly wouldn't. If I'm only supposed to be like, hey, the coach has more information than I have to respect anything that I see on the court. We're allowed to criticize them because they're humans and they're flawed. And I think some of Tibbs' flaws are why he's no longer the head coach anymore. And some of Mike Brown's strengths are why he is the head coach right now.
Absolutely.
And are why they're being coached to the point where I wonder if he'll end up in legitimate coach of the year conversations.
He should be in coach of the year conversations, despite the fact that he's 30-1 right now. Shout out to
Weekly Wagers.
Sean putting that up on Weekly Wagers. Look, the internet is forever. People could go back if they want. I don't know why they would, but if they want, and go listen to the things that I was saying about David Fizdale when that team was. I'm not kidding.
No, I know you're not. We were confused by it then. Then the Tibbs thing happened, and it was, this is a thing he has with coaches, which I do think that this is a thing that you have, that you're always going to stand or not stand. Well, maybe that is the
no. I am always going to
the head coach
benefit of the doubt.
At the benefit of the doubt, great. I wish that would extend to some players that we don't know what's going on in some of their lives, but we have data on them, so we can rant and rave about their effective field goal percentage and make judgments that way. I think we can also do the same with head coaches in a more rational conversation. Absolutely. Which is where I think, and this is really where I have concern for you, that this argument keeps coming up, even though the Tibbs fired live stream, you said my watch is over, and you're clearly making trips to the wall, Jon Snow. Well,
I'll
let me
respond to that in a
finish.
second because I don't agree with it, but continue.
I've literally just read a whole comment section of you yelling at a subscriber about I need to defend Tom Thibodeau.
No, I wasn't defending Tom Thibodeau. I was defending myself because that was about
defending you.
Yeah, because when my ethics as far as the choices of what I put and do not put my newsletter are questioned, that's when I get upset. And
it's your newsletter, write what you want. Yeah.
No, it's not. It's the people's newsletter. I write what I feel is most relevant at the moment. Which is why questioning whether that was like a vanity thing kind of set me off. The Tibbs, my watch is over because I'm done defending him because I don't need to defend him anymore because he's not the head coach anymore. The Thibodeau storyline and the comparisons between Thibodeau and Mike Brown are arguably still today the most relevant topic about this team because it is the material difference, the only material difference, give or take a Tyler Kolek and a Kevin McCullough Jr., so on and so forth, between this year's team and last year's team. So if we are not, what else do we have to make the compare? There's nothing else to compare to because Tibbs was the coach for the last 5 years.
I'm just hoping, and listen, this is one of my regrets in life that I didn't meet you sooner. I never got to know you and Dolores while you were dating. I never got to know you guys when you were engaged and planning your wedding. You got to see how I am with weddings and how I like to be part of the planning process, and I'm big on details. I didn't get to hear your vows in the moment. At no point during your vows do I think you brought up any of your old exes that laid the foundation for who you would be as a person, as a husband, as the man you were that day. Just as I never brought up that one ex you know about during my wedding vows either. I hope we can get to a point as a collective fan base, not just as John and Andrew on a podcast, where we can say Mike Brown is doing an outstanding job with this basketball team, coaching it like a championship team is supposed to be coached without bringing up the old head coach or any of the things he established or any of the things that he fell short on. I hope we can get to a point where Mike Brown is just having a great season and coaching a great team. And that's the end of the conversation.
I mean, implicit when you say during your vows, no one has ever made me feel like you do before, or whatever version of that I said, I'm sure, during my vows.
Okay.
Implicit in that is a comparison. Every person that we date, that we, whatever, we are constantly comparing to the people that came before them, because how else would we judge? I am all for the concept of true love, but true love in a vacuum is nothing. We only have knowledge about that based on our experiences as people up until that point in life. So to me, it's the same reason that I am the way I am as a dad. I love my kids, but I compare every minute that I am with my kids to the minutes before I was a parent, which was a fuckload easier, which is why I am the way I am. It's all a comparison. So,
but at any point in those comparisons of your vows, did you dedicate most of the word count to your exes?
No, I dedicated most of the word count to myself because I'm a fucking egotistical maniac.
It's all I'm hoping for is that it is understood the outstanding, franchise changing thing that Tom Thibodeau did for the New York Knicks. I have another point on this, but it'll come up in another question. I will always appreciate Tibbs for what he is. I am extremely appreciative and look forward to Mike Brown solidifying himself and his own legacy with the New York Knicks going forward.
The no one will ever need
till death do us part.
Till death do us part. The comparisons or the references, not comparisons, because I haven't been making comparisons. It's references for reference points. Will stop, and I referenced this on the show last night. I'll reference it again. If they make it past the conference finals, Ian Begley has said this multiple times.
Disagree with both of you, by the way, but I understand I understand that it's a results thing for you both. And I think the process has already been better.
I'm always happy to stand with Ian.
I'm not saying he's bad, but I also make my own decisions and opinions, and I don't need. I have other people in the beat that also agree with me. If you want to go that direction,
totally. On this one, I'll stand with.
Again,
with
that's a respectful disagreement to Ian. I love Ian Bagley. I just disagree with him on this point. I'm already enjoying this season through 32 games way more than I did last season, and I think we've learned more about this team through 32 games than we did to this point last season.
I'll throw you this bone. I do not for a second think it is as simple as if Mike Brown doesn't make the finals, he's not as good of a coach as Todd. Like, that's insane.
Of course not.
There is not one scintilla of me right now that thinks that Tom Thibodeau should still be the coach of this team. Not one ounce of me. Just like, and this is, I think, what you've kind of been implying, like, am I like not going to be happy if Mike Brown's coach of the year? There is not going to be a person in Knicks land happier than me if Mike Brown is coach of the year. I swear on my kids, because that'll, A, the Knicks have had a great regular season. And B, another Knicks head coach gets the ultimate respect around the league, which is, and he's probably getting the respect of the fan base, which is what I want to see, because that's what he deserves. Just like that's what the last head coach deserved.
The more thing that I'm worried about my friend for is that if Mike Brown gets said respect, but there is a vocal minority of people, or just a vocal portion of people that are like, yeah, because he's not Tibbs, or he did what Tibbs couldn't, you'll respond to that and not enjoy the, like, will the Tibbs newsletter come out during the summer
again,
of like, yeah, Mike Brown did great, but remember Tibbs. And I would love for us to just enjoy what Mike Brown is doing this year.
I said it before Mike Brown was hired. The most important person that when everybody was with Benji sticks out, when everybody was fretting about, oh, they got to get this hire right, this and the other thing. Who was the guy saying, you know who the most important person that could coach this team is? Not Tom Thibodeau. They needed to make a change. Again, the record is what it is. I've always been consistent about this. I said it in the moment, and it started really for me with the Bridges thing in last March. When that boiled over, I'm like, I think this might be the point of no return. And I said it then, and which is why when people, we would have these conversations after every big playoff win. People would be like, all right, is Tibbs' job safe now? And people would be like, he has to be safe now, right? And who was the guy sitting here and be like...
It was all of us, John, because we had more information than everybody else. That the results don't matter as much. It's very much the process that will probably get him fired. Now they get to the finals. It's impossible to fire a coach. At least I think it's impossible to fire a coach that doesn't make the finals. But we were hearing all year... Like, and again, it's the disagreement Sean and I had when I made my one and only appearance on Study Hall in 2025. He didn't get fired because he lost in the conference finals. He got fired because after the conference finals, the entire team outside of Jalen Brunson, outside of the roommates pod, went and complained to the owner and the front office. Like, we didn't like how this season was coached and think we need a change there.
Tibbs got fired because Tibbs is an asshole.
Because he's Tibbs, yeah. But because he's this is why we can end on this. You really do need to step a toe into the baseball waters. Like, what's happening with the Mets is they have a Tom Thibodeau figure. It doesn't sound like he's much of an asshole as Tibbs. He's just much more of
he's not a Tom Thibodeau figure.
Well, just like he's a Tom Thibodeau figure in that I think he's trying, like what David Stearns is doing with the Mets is trying to establish a floor. And as much as I think a team in a sport with no salary cap should explore a ceiling, this is also a franchise that's made the playoffs in back-to-back years twice ever. So, like, I'm okay if he actually establishes a baseline of at least we make the playoffs every year, even if it's just that little wild card round and out. At least you've established that foundation. Unfortunately, it's going to mean every player that you had an affection for the past 5-6 years has to be let go and probably not replaced, unless it's by somebody within the farm system. You would be on the front lines defending the floor if it could be, if David Stearns were to establish it. And I think other people would be out there trying to establish he needs to explore a ceiling and leave his comfort zone a little more, which we've seen Mike Brown do a lot this year.
all well said. Look, I'm thrilled Mike Brown is a coach, and there is really no one who wants success for him more than I don't have the connection to Tibbs. It'll always be there to a certain extent, but it's not like an active thing. It really does come down to, critiques of how I continue to talk about him, because, he's always going to be an interesting figure to me, and that will live on.
To you, yes, indeed. He's an X that I don't need to talk about anymore. Just one only thing about the actual Coach of the Year odds. This is again according to Fanatics Sportsbook. You guys talked about the odds yesterday.
Yeah, I said it was 3,000.
Right, plus 3,000. I'm just now to just add my contribution to this. It's JB Bickerstaff and Mitch Johnson. Those are the top two.
Yeah.
I need Darko to not be as high on this list ahead of Mike Brown as he currently is. I also need Spo, captain of the play-in, to head behind Mike Brown on this list as well. I know it's a reputation thing there. Knicks win 60 games. Mike Brown should finish no lower than 5th for Coach of the Year. That's my...
I think if the Knicks win 60 games, Mike Brown should finish no lower than 3rd.
Oh, even better. Okay, we're on the same path there. That could have been the whole conversation, that if the Knicks win 60 games, we didn't have to spend the last 25 minutes having this conversation. We could have just
you said, brought it up.
We could have just said, if he wins 60 games, where should he finish? 3rd? Okay, I'll say 5th. Great. But instead, we had the conversation that I think a lot of people wanted to have with you. So
the guy is doing an A+ job. I wrote in a recent newsletter, it was A- because he himself came out and admitted some flaws that he had made, or errors that he had made. And the more I thought about it, that endears me to him more. And you know what? To Liz's last ball, because we really got to move on here. Whereas it was very easy for me to develop an emotional connection to Tibbs because he displayed many of the qualities that I was proud of myself for displaying in my own personal life. Maybe I should spend a little bit more time thinking about why I like Mike Brown, because he's doing a lot of things that I think are hard for me and for a lot of people to do. It's actually quite easy to be a stubborn asshole. It's like, for me at least, it's very easy to like be openly humble and really put your flaws out there and say like, and be the head coach of an NBA team and say like, yeah, my all the people that work for me, they were like, hey, you're wrong. And to just say that to everybody. And this is the thing you're supposed to be best at, right? Mm-hmm. You're supposed to be the best of anybody at this thing, at head coaching. And just come out there and be like, yeah, I fucked up.
That's showing his humanity, which I think is the only thing I've ever strongly pushed back in any of the Tibbs conversations that we've had, is that he's human. And with Mike Brown, you're getting to see his human side and his flaws, which all of us as humans have flaws as well. We mess up at work all the time. And it's probably the most endearing thing I have with the head coach is that he seems like, this is honestly no disrespect to Tibbs, but he does seem like a more personable person, a better hang. The fact that he's asking where James is when they're on the road trip before Christmas. He's a Niners fan. I'm like invested in the Niners potentially getting the 1 seed, because I know the Knicks head coach will be very happy if his team wins the Super Bowl.
This is very true.
Like, I had none of that with Tibbs. I just knew he lived at Tarrytown Plaza or wherever the Knicks facility was.
The fact that we've seen the human side of Mike Brown so early and often makes it much harder for me to connect with him. It was much easier for me to connect with the robot.
Yes, with the robot.
Okay,
that was my first question, but it's number 3. So go ahead.
My number 2 question. You alluded to it actually a few minutes ago. What happens if the Knicks fail to make the finals? And what went away again? No, I thought okay.
Go ahead.
No, I got it now. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I asked this question not having really a theory about what the answer is, because the obvious answer is something having to do with Giannis, but like, there's a possibility Giannis may be traded before this deadline. And there's a strong possibility that even if he says again this summer, I want to go to the Knicks, that they don't have the package and that he's amenable enough to go somewhere else that would be the easy answer to the question. If he's not on the table, like, do they give Cat the extension? Like, do they try to shake it up? So, I mean, it obviously would depend on how they lost, who they lost to, what flaws were or were not exposed. Is there a world where they'll make the finals and there's a conversation about, the Brunson Cat thing just can't work? So again, in that scenario, I'm assuming they would try to get rid of Towns. Because it's not like you could build a better infrastructure around those two guys. I genuinely don't believe that's possible. Is there more of a push to make Towns a full-time 4? I could see it going in a lot of different directions, but I guess knowing this owner, and frankly, knowing this president of basketball operations, I struggle to see a world where they fail to make the finals and it's mostly status quo. So I think they would do something significant.
The how's going to matter. I think for me, if it's like, obviously if an injury happens, I wonder how much they'll be in a rush to break it up. As I just alluded to with the last dance of it all, I also know there's a lot of roster questions they're going to have to make anyway. Like there's a Cat extension. He's extension eligible now, but is even more so extension eligible this summer.
Well, you've reached the year until he can become a free agent threshold, which is always like the line of
Julius deadline that they had, like
the Trae Young deadline that Atlanta zoomed past this past summer, and we see where that situation is right now.
So the how is of course going to matter a lot, and if they just get outplayed by a team, or we just spent a while talking about Mike Brown, like if he gets outcoached by somebody in the second round, it's going to force them to ask a lot of questions about the roster, about the decision they made last year. I also, like, if Anunoby gets hurt, if he's the one that gets hurt and they clearly fall off a cliff defensively, like Anunoby is going to be my next question, is something about him. But I think he's been, in fact, it might actually be a good segue.
Yeah, put it up.
My question is, can OG Anunoby make his first All-Star team? And I've already started to plant this seed. I went on Game Theory and said that you guys should be considering OG to be the Knicks' second All-Star over Cat. And they pushed back about like what his role is and what the responsibility of Cat is. And I just was like, they are just flatly the contender that they are because OG Anunoby got inserted back into the lineup. I understand what Cat is. I understand what his responsibility is and how teams have to game plan for him. They have to game plan for OG Anunoby on the defensive end in ways that they just never, they target Karl-Anthony Towns on the defensive end. Should he get hurt during a playoff series, I would imagine the Knicks would struggle to win the series. And if that's the reason that they lose it, is the thing, hey, this is now 2 playoff series in the last 3 years that we've been eliminated from after Anunoby got hurt. It's more easy for us to move on from him to a Giannis, to whatever shakeup of the roster is necessary, So like the how is going to matter too.
Well, you're blending two conversations, because if the Giannis thing becomes, if the Giannis thing becomes more of a thing, if you put Anunoby on the table, then absolutely Anunoby getting hurt in the playoffs would nudge the needle. If the Giannis thing is not on the table, then I actually think OG Anunoby getting hurt in a series and then losing the series would be, again, depending on the series, because like there were guys hurt for the Cavs in their series against the Pacers and nobody cared about that, in terms of, laying it pretty thick on the Cavs for not showing up. And frankly, like they shouldn't have, because they folded like a cheap suit. I think it would be maybe a slightly different situation, at least internally for the Knicks, if OG got hurt, because the way they how many teams out there can sustain a loss to one of their two most important players, which I think I've been pretty clear about. Now, to your question, can OG make his first All-Star team? I did it last night. I think there are 10 locks in the East. And I think after that, you could talk about essentially a half dozen guys. I think the Knicks would need to go gangbusters between now and whenever the coaches made that final decision on the reserves. Like, when does that decision get made at like the 42 game mark or before?
It's the week. It's the night of the deadline that it's announced. So I think it's the week leading up to the trade deadline.
So let's hold on. Let's game this out. So the night of the deadline, I believe, is February 6th, right?
Yes. No, it's February 5th.
It's the Thursday.
Right. Isn't Thursday the 5th? Because Valentine's Day is... Yeah, Valentine's Day is a Saturday.
Yes. So that means coaches' ballots, I think, are probably going to be due that Monday. I think they're due that Monday, if memory serves. So that means that they will have played 49 games. Let's make it even 50, because and you could consider the Cup final, which, by the way, OG Anunoby was outstanding in. So let's say the Knicks will have played 50 games. They are 23-9 right now, 24-9 if you count the Cup final. How many games is that? 33. So that's 17 left. If they go 14-3, that would put them at 38-12. I think it would be something like that. I think it would take something like that for him to get on, especially considering he missed 11 games?
He missed 11 games?
10 or 11.
I know he missed that many. Yeah, I think it's gonna have to be something like that. I think what the Knicks were when he was out, though, I think we'll also have part of the narrative around it. Look, they were like a barely over 500 team. They're a title contender and a machine. Looking back, you know?
I haven't checked I don't go too deep in the weeds. I haven't checked the defensive on-offs for them in a bit.
I got them for you. They have a 111 defense with him off, a 119 with him on.
So,
or the opposite. They're a 111 with him on, a 119 with him off. They're like a point or two difference offensively. They're a top 4 or 5 defense in the NBA with him on. They're a bottom 4 or 5 defense with him off.
That difference is not as stark as it was definitely before he went out.
But it's still a stark difference.
No, it is a stark difference, but I think at the time he went out, because I remember writing about this, the difference was like 16 points per 100 possessions on defense. Now I'm looking at it on Cleaning Glass, it's 8.6.
Is it Jokic numbers? No, but it's still like...
No, it's awesome, but the reason I bring it up is I think there are 3 natural pushbacks. One, he's not like an offensive creator for his team. And if you figured if there was ever going to be a situation where a guy like an OG Anunoby archetype makes an all-star team, it would have been with Derek White with the Celtics a couple of years ago. He never gained. I don't think he gained serious traction. Maybe it was a little bit more serious, but it was like, he was like the 3rd or 4th guy mentioned in like the deserved consideration. That's number one. Number two, the games he missed, and number three, if you look at it and be like, yeah, he's really good on defense, but like the Knicks are still, they're a league average defense at best. So he's not turning them into like the best defense in the league when he's out there, which I wonder for a guy who is not known for like creating offense, would that be the bar? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I think it's gonna be an uphill battle. That's all.
According to Cleaning the Glass, when OG Anunoby is on the court, the Knicks have a 111.1, 111.2. I know it's around 111, which would be the 4th best defense in the NBA as of right now. And if they, as the off, they'd be around a 119.5, I believe is the number, which would be the 3rd worst defense in the NBA. That's enough for me to that gap between the 3rd best defense and the 3rd worst defense is enough for me to say his impact is pretty significant in the minutes that he's playing. Listen, the way I phrased it was, Ken, OG Anunoby.
Yeah, he can.
I actually don't know if he can because of, like you said, the coaches will vote more toward the hubs, the primary offensive responsibilities on each team. We just haven't seen a lot of examples of a guy like OG, other than like J-Dub last year, and he was like a guy averaging 20 plus a game. So
putting aside my 10 locks, which again, for anybody who listened to didn't listen to the post game, Duran, Cade, Brunson, Cat, Brown, Barnes, Maxey, Mitchell, Jalen Johnson, Giannis. Those 10 are getting on. Well, maybe Jalen Johnson isn't a lock, but
Jalen Johnson. I don't know if he's much of a lock anymore.
I think he should be, but that's my personal. So maybe we should have him as lock. I think he's getting on. So then the remaining candidates in no particular order are. I would obviously would have said Franz Wagner, but I don't know how you do that. He's going to miss more than half the games. Bam, Norm Powell, Evan Mobley, Josh Giddey. And I don't think either of these guys are going to get serious consideration, even though you could argue they should, is Pascal Siakam and Michael Porter Jr. So if you want to just boil it down to, and I think the Giddey case may have run out of a lot of steam. Like he has been really good, but they're under 500, so maybe it's going to be the two spots for four guys, Mobley, the two Heat guys, and OG. Maybe that's who it comes down to.
If the Knicks are 38-12, they deserve a third All-Star.
That would
be my argument. That you put Cat on, and this is.
And actually, sorry, I forgot. Mobley's going to be out for.
That's true. He's also he's back, but he was on a minutes restriction and missed like 7 games over that stretch. So maybe those are your last two, like Evan Mobley after reestablishing himself, and OG Anunoby.
Mobley's played 26 games. That's more than OG.
Is it 22?
Yeah, I mean the Heat aren't getting 2. So if you figure the Heat,
one, they're a 500 team, or barely over 500 team.
I'm not saying they need one. But both Bam and Norm are having really nice years. That's all I'll say.
I think if Norm was still having a supernova shooting season, I would say, yeah, of course he's an All-Star. He's why they're like around a 4 or 5 seed. They are headed back to the play-in where they belong, and will probably not deserve an All-Star as a result.
Norman Powell shooting 48% from the field and 40% from 3.
Right. He was shooting 55-45 like a month ago, and they looked like the best offense since D'Antoni decided that teams should shoot more 3s than 2s.
He's shooting 54% on 2s. All right, we got to move on. All right, top questions. My top question is it isn't pretty simple, because I thought about, I toyed back and forth or toggled back and forth between. Real
quick, this should be the last question because it's the question of 2025.
Well, it's my turn.
Or 2026. Right, but I'll just put up mine real quick and just say it might coincide it. How high will Jalen Brunson finish for MVP as Mike Brown continues to campaign for it? Nikola Jokic got hurt last night.
We hope he's okay.
I hope he's okay. 100% hope he's okay. If he isn't okay and has to, I'm not even saying has to miss significant time and is not out for the year. I don't wish that. If he misses enough games that doesn't make him eligible for awards, is all I'm putting out there, then that suddenly makes this an interesting race with voters potentially considering voter fatigue as an option. Jalen Brunson, what were the odds you gave out last night? He's behind
150-1. He's behind. He's behind like Maxey. He's behind.
Yeah, he's plus 15,000 behind Wemby. It's Jokic is the favorite. SGA is plus 120. Luka, even though the Lakers, everybody seems to believe are in free fall, is a plus 700. Basically, if Jalen Brunson is the clutch player of the year and is the best player on a Knicks team that gets the 1 seed and is potentially a 60-win team, could that narrative, especially with his coach pounding the drum and pounding the desk, could that narrative get him as high as 1 is my question. I think the ceiling for him, if everyone's healthy and Jokic is available, is 3. I wonder if he could get higher if certain injury requirements, if certain injuries make your season eligibility make it not happen for Jokic. It's really a Jokic question for me.
So because of the defensive metrics, which they're really bad. And
he's not been good defensively for most of it. He will not be winning the DPOY, the DPOG, the defensive player of the game, the hard hat and Tim's anytime soon.
He's literally the only person on the roster outside of Pacome Daddy, I think, that hasn't won it.
Yep.
So, and you could say, well, Jokic was never a good defender. That was always part of the interesting conversation about Jokic, is the defensive metrics for Jokic have always been either good or exceptional, to the point where people were like, well, this has to be wrong because he's not one of the 5 best defenders in the sport. And there were metrics painting him as that.
Because of his rebounding. Yeah, it's why Cat grades out as like a fine rebounder too, because of his rebounding.
There's
fine defender, fine defender for Cat. Go ahead, sorry.
There's no such argument for Jalen Brunson, and to that point, for as great as he is offensively, and he is exceptional offensively, he currently grades out 23rd in Basketball Reference for value over replacement player and 26th in the league for box plus minus. Now, offensive box plus minus, he's 10th. That's really good. It's not enough to make up for where he is defensively, which I don't even want to look at. Now, win shares, which is probably my personal favorite of these, as Zach Lowe says, Vorps and Schnorps.
Strength.
He is 5th behind Nikola Jokic, SGA, Jimmy Butler, who's always at the top of this category. Advanced stats have always loved Jimmy. And I'll give you 20 guesses at who's 4th.
Norm Powell.
No,
I don't want to guess all 20. What was it?
Former Knick.
Julius Randle.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Your favorite.
Yeah. And then and here's the other thing against his case. Here's the rest of the top 5. Rudy Gobert, Mikal Bridges in 7th, Tyrese Maxey 8th, Kevin Durant 9th, Karl-Anthony Towns 10th. He has no advanced statistical case. Does he need one? There hasn't been a narrative / counting stats winner since Westbrook, and the backlash on the Westbrook win was as immediate and as forceful as anything that we have seen in a long time. So I don't know.
I think the highest he can get is 3. If Jokic becomes ineligible, then is it just okay? Let's give it to Shea, wins back to back, or
I think they give it to Shea.
Can a narrative be formed that gives a New York Knick winning 60 games, clearly their most important player in crunch time, has all the big clutch shots this year? Will the narrative be formed? Again, I'm having the conversation. I think the highest he can get is 3.
I actually think the highest, if Jokic has misses enough games, I actually think the highest that Brunson can get is 2. I think there's enough stuff that can break with some of the other contenders, even putting aside games played stuff. I just don't see a universe where voters are going to be like looking at Jalen Brunson's name and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's name and writing Jalen Brunson's name at the top of their ballot. I don't see enough. I can see some people doing it. I don't see enough people doing it. But
I think I agree there. Okay. The question of 2026, John.
Yeah, well, the Knicks win a championship for the first time since 1973. I thought about making the question, will the Knicks make the finals for the first time since 1999? And to me, that really, I should have written the question differently. What counts as success for the Knicks this year? Because I think that is actually the most interesting question. If they make the finals and they lose a hard-fought 6-game series to the Thunder or even the Nuggets, will this season be seen as a success? Will this era be seen as a success? And like you referenced before, I think a lot of that is wrapped up in the how. But that is, I don't want to start thinking about that one because I'm never one to put the cart before the horse. But like, it is interesting. I mean, yeah, I think there are some teams that make the finals and it's like the Heat team in the bubble that made the finals, or even the Heat team that made the finals against the Nuggets. I think those were teams that when they made the finals, that was the accomplishment. The 99 Knicks, classic example. Like that was the accomplishment. And then other teams like the 94 Knicks, Ewing finally getting there and having the moment.
Yeah.
That is above my right shoulder. But
did you say the Mavericks? Did I miss that? Did you say the Mavericks getting it with Luka and Kyrie?
That's a good example of them just kind of getting there was the accomplishment.
Well, so to all the examples you used, how the finals went is what made how just making the finals an accomplishment. You could have made the case the Pacers getting there last year was an accomplishment, but then it looked like they might win it. And it became a what if for them, especially when Game 7 goes the way it does. If the Knicks just make it, losing 5 and the margin isn't even close with OKC, I think we'll look back and be like, you know what? They made the finals or ran into a juggernaut. If they're up 2-1 and losing 6 or 7, we will probably look at it a lot differently as far as a success than we would have the other way.
This is going to sound insane. And to be very clear, you said the words for them, meaning for the Pacers and their fans. They view that finals one way. This is going to sound nuts. I don't obviously if they won, they'd be talked about as an NBA champion. I don't think the fact that they didn't win changes people's opinions of that Pacer team. I think the fact that they lost in the way that they lost, people look at it like storybook season. It's a shame that happened. Who knows what would have happened? I don't think it changes anybody's estimation. Whereas this Knicks team, even outside of New York, I do think people are going to be like, yeah, typical classic Knicks, bridesmaid, never the bride. As they have been for the last 50 X number of years.
I think if they make the finals, that goes away. They'll have made the finals for the first time in 25 years.
Maybe
26 years. Excuse me. They make the finals.
I tell you, if the Thunder go on to win 70 or 69 or 71, however many games, and kind of run roughshod-ish over the Western Conference playoffs, then I will agree with you if the Knicks lose a hard-fought 6-game series. The Thunder just lost 3 times to a team that the Knicks beat.
I'm well aware of the they're not that far away case that can be made for the Knicks. It's also, I don't know if they're actually going to get a test from the Thunder this year. The two times they play them in March. Who knows what version of both teams we're going to see in March. To that point, though, yeah, the how will absolutely matter. To what you alluded to that I said at the beginning. I do think the Knicks owe us a banner, right? They'll get to hang one if they win the East. So they'll get the chance to. Well, I'll tell you right now, if they don't hang an Eastern Conference Championship banner, you better take down those Atlantic Division Championship banners. Is my first.
When do they hang the Eastern Conference Championship banner? The next year?
If I remember right, the Atlantic Division Champion banner was up before the season started. It was there in the preseason. They didn't have a banner night. It was just there. Okay. So I don't know. Let's go ask the Pacers what they did with if they have an Eastern Conference. That's going to be my next question.
I'm sure they do.
Pacers pregame pod. Look, I do think getting to the finals will be enough that league perception will change around them. But as we discussed with Pablo last week, there will still be people that just want to talk about when they were a joke and use that for their content because nothing of the present is worth talking about or laughing about with the Knicks. And so you may never win those people over. What you can win over is the general consensus. This is one of the best run organizations, and you'll get that trophy ceremony of winning a conference championship and, see what happens in the finals. You at least have that you could say that's one of the 2 best teams in the sport.
I don't care about those sorts of narratives. Just looking at this from the perspective that we always try to look at things here at Knicks Film School. as we've said many times, Leon Rose assembled this roster. He went out and got every single one of these players with the exception of Mitchell Robinson, and he has made the affirmative decision several times to keep Mitchell Robinson and reinvest in Mitchell Robinson. They have not had any crazy bad luck, give or take, in archaic, frankly, now irrelevant rule in the CBA that barred them from giving Isaiah Hartenstein the money that they should have been allowed to keep to give him. This is the team. He built this team to win a title, not to make the finals, to win a title. I get everything you're saying, and I don't disagree with the general sentiment of it. I don't know. I don't even know how I'm going to feel if they make the finals and lose, but I got to tell you, man, if I'm picturing it the night, and I say this knowing how cathartic beating Boston was to get to the conference finals and how I felt that night. If they make the finals, that's going to be awesome if they make the finals. But whereas I will never, among the feelings that this team has made me feel over the course of my life, number one on the list will remain how I felt the night that they beat the Pacers in 1999, because that was my NBA finals. And I literally didn't care if they got their fucking doors blown off by the Spurs. Didn't think for a second they were going to even be able to compete with the Spurs.
Yeah. And look, to romanticize it even more, I guess this is a good place to end. The shared feeling that both of us have is that I think a lot of this came out the night they beat the Celtics this year. I forgot what this feels like, getting to the conference finals. Yeah. I can only go back 25 years to experience it. It was one of the first feelings I had as a Knicks fan, but I forgot what this feels like to get this far in the playoffs, to be one of the 4 remaining teams. The other shared feeling we have is them getting to the finals. We will be able to say, I forgot what this feels like. I haven't felt this way in a while. If they make the finals, neither of us, and a lot of us watching and listening and part of this community, don't know what it's like to experience the Knicks winning a championship. And the fact that we might get to do it as part of this collective community in front of cameras and microphones will just be like, you want to talk about, you don't know how you'll react. You don't have experience to go back to. You don't know how you'll ever feel because we've never felt it.
I know.
So the uniqueness of winning a title will be something that we all get to experience for the first time. I think getting to experience that second feeling can still be considered a success, but we'll see if they can give us that first time ever feeling later this year.
Yeah, to go back to your number one question, I think it will be seen as more of a success for some than others. Like if Brunson makes the finals, he will be viewed in a way. I'm trying. It's
Mount Rushmore. I think he might already be on Mount Rushmore, but he just put away the tools, Yeah, no one will. Whereas Patrick, for as great a moment as that was, Patrick was supposed to come here to deliver a championship. Yeah,
and he didn't, and that's just part of his legacy. I do not think a finals loss will ever, if he makes the finals, that will only be seen as a positive in Jalen Brunson's legacy. People will say he not that he accomplished what he came here to accomplish, but the Jalen Brunson everything was a resounding success. He brought the Knicks to the finals, and it was whatever other things happened where they could not help him, win it, or again, he just ran into a juggernaut. But those will be conversations for another day. Those are our questions. That's it. We're done.
That we are ready for 2026, John. We have asked all the necessary questions.
So what should my New Year's resolution be? Don't say the words or write the words Tom Thibodeau for...
You could write it. It's just if you're trying to praise Mike Brown, praise Mike Brown. You could let more of the word count be about what Mike Brown has done than what Tom Thibodeau did.
It was all about Mike Brown because it's about this is where we came from, and now look at where we are. It's all everything
every ex in my life and for everything that you helped me learn about myself or what I didn't need to have in my life. Don't worry, babe. I'll eventually get to you on our wedding day. We will eventually talk about you. But for right now, I want to talk about the foundation that my ex helped lay for my life. And yeah, look, I hope we get to that point where it's just, hey, Mike Brown's doing a great job.
He is.
Right. And the end of the sentence.
That's it. That's it. That's all it is. All right. Thanks for doing this. This is fun. All right, everybody out there, catch me on the Spurs post game. What else do we got coming up?
That's it.
Probably
Spurs post game, some betting and sweating videos out. There's a chance I join you at some point of the Spurs post game. I've been talking to Kevin behind the scenes about who's producing the Spurs post game, but regardless, if I don't see anybody until 2026, the pregame pod will return in 2026. But Happy New Year to all. Thank you to everyone for their support and their contributions and their participation in the conversation here at Knicks Film School. I love the family and the community that we have here, and I wouldn't trade it for anything. So, yeah, thank you. And we'll see you next year, which is Thursday. So we'll see you Thursday.
See everybody later. Talk to you soon. Peace out.
Must be 21 or older. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Connecticut, call 888-789-7777. Massachusetts, call 800-327-5050. New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY. Maryland, visit mdgamblinghelp.org. Not available in all states. Terms apply. See the Fanatics Sportsbook app.